Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. To make an object appear to float convincingly can be achieved with good technique and attention to detail. This picture is a composite of two separate captures, the subject on glass and a second capture of just the background. They are then combined in Photoshop to produce the finished picture. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the set around the subject itself. So basically here I've just put a piece of wood on top of this table just to make it a little bit bigger. Then on top of this I'm just going to place a piece of very matte perspex. There we are. Now I'm using this particular type of surface on purpose so that I don't get any unwanted reflections. Basically this will give me a good base to build the rest of the set around. Okay, so the next thing would be a towel like this. I'm just going to place this on here, something like that. Now this actually serves two purposes. The first is it gives a light surface so that the underside of the subject will be lit. And the second is that it will give a surface on which I can project a shadow from the subject itself. Right, so to set up the subject, what I'm going to do is just place a couple of pieces of wood like this to support a piece of glass. Now this is just an old glass shelf. You can use anything for this. We're actually going to be taking it out of the picture at the end, so the quality of the glass doesn't really matter. Okay, so something like that. And then on top of here I place the subject, which are these pears. So we'll just place these on here. There we go. There. So with those in position then, if I place a light somewhere up here, it's going to cast a shadow onto this tea towel, so we'll be able to see the shadow. Okay, so for the light I've got this small flash head in this softbox. I'm just going to place this almost directly over the top. I don't want it completely over the top, otherwise the shadow may well be a little boring. So I'm just going to take that just up in the air a bit. There we are, something like that anyway. Okay, so with the light in position, final thing to do would be to add a background along here somewhere. So in order to do that, I'm just going to use this C stand. So just put this here. I'll just put the arm up. And on this C stand, I'm just going to place a piece of card. Now I'm using card for this so that it's already coloured, for one, and two, it will give me a relatively smooth background. You could use seamless paper, but that does tend to wrinkle, so this will give us a good starting point. So I just pop that up in the air a little. There we are, something like that anyway. Okay, so with all this now set, apart from maybe a few minor little alterations for composition, that's the set built. So the next thing to do would be to think about the camera position. So what I'm going to do is place a tripod about here somewhere. There we are. Now I have to use a tripod for this because I'm going to use two captures to produce the final image, as I said in the introduction. Okay, so to capture those images, I'm going to use this medium format Phase 1 digital camera. Now this is a true medium format camera and has an enormous sensor on the back here, This is 100 megapixels, but you can quite easily do this same image with just your normal full frame cameras or APS-C or whatever you have to hand, really. I'm using this because it makes it considerably easier for me to show you the techniques involved in doing this sort of thing. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this on the top of the tripod like that. There we go. Now this will be used tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to see the results as we go along. There we are, the camera's all on now, and the Capture One software has recognized the camera, and it's showing me the settings that I have on the camera at the moment. So I have the camera in full manual mode. I'm using a shutter speed of 1/125th of a second. Now that is the flash sync speed for the focal plane shutter in this camera. And it's relatively slow as far as digital cameras are concerned. So I will need to do a test just to make sure that I don't get any contamination from the house lights, but I'll come to that in a moment. So the rest of the settings, I've just got a sensitivity of 100 ISO, and I've got an aperture here set at f11. So for that test that I mentioned, I'm actually going to widen out the aperture to its maximum, which is 2.8. So 2.8 would be the worst case, if you like. There we are. Okay, so with no flash turned on yet, what I'm going to do is just take an image and see what we get. So I'll just roughly focus that and just press the autofocus button on the back. And just adjust the composition a little. I'm just going to wind this up very slightly to about there. Maybe point that down a little bit like that. There we are. Okay, so with those changes now made, what I'll do is grab an image and we'll see what we get. Okay, so we can see from this that with the house lights alone, we're getting quite a lot of contamination. But I won't be using this at 2.8. I'm going to shut the lens down to give me some more depth of field. So I'm going to apply that now. So from 2.8, I'm going to take this to f11. Now that's obviously a 4-stop change, so it should get rid of the contamination. Just grab another image and see what we get. There. Now with those settings, there's virtually no image there at all, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so the next stage would be to turn the flash on and get a test exposure with the flash. So one of the advantages of using this camera system is that I don't need a separate flash trigger. The flash trigger is actually built into the camera itself. If I just access that through the menu here, with this I can actually turn on that flash head, like so. And now once that is on, I have full control over it. So for instance, I can initially set that to a TTL reading, and I can grab an image and we'll see what we get. And there we are, straight away you can see that we're in the right ballpark in terms of exposure, and the shadow underneath here isn't quite as pronounced as I would like. So that's the first thing to address. So in order to do that, all I'm going to do is move this further away. That will in effect make the size of this from the object's point of view smaller. Therefore the shadow will be more pronounced. So all I'm going to do is just raise this up in the air like this. There we are. So at that sort of height, I'm going to need a little more energy in the system. So I'm just going to add 1 stop to the flash energy. So I'll just bring up the flash menu here, take it out of TTL and put it back into manual. And now I'm just going to add that stop. So we'll just take that up by 1. And we'll grab that again. Okay, so now you can see that the shadow has become a lot more prominent, much more like what we want. The exposure is possibly a little low. I could bring it up another stop. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to add another stop. So I'll just select that and add another stop. There we are. We'll grab that again. Yes, that's brought it up nicely. Okay. I think I'd like to just check on the focus for all this, and the way I'm going to do that is just to go into live view. This is another advantage of using this particular type of camera system. I can focus the camera up through the live view and I have full control over the lens. So if I just zoom that all the way into 100%, I can now place the cursor on the pair at the back there, and I can focus the camera from here. This makes it considerably easier to set a good focus. So that's the back. So now I can just move the cursor onto the front. We'll just refocus that. There we go. So I think somewhere around there should be fine. Let's have a look at the other one. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay. So with that done, I can dispense with the live view and just grab another image. Yes, that's looking all right. Just check it on here. Just go into 100%. Yeah, that's all looking pretty good. Okay. So that's the first of our 2 images captured. So the next image will be just a blank frame really, with just the tea towel. And I'm just going to remove everything else. There we are. And I'm being very careful not to disturb the tea towel at all. So with that all done, what I'll do now is just grab that again. And there we are. That's given me this blank frame, which is what I want. Okay, so now with those 2 images captured, it just remains to go into Photoshop and do the post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the 2 files of the 2 images I captured earlier. This is the background image, and this one is the capture of the subject with the shadow down here. Okay, so the first stage in combining these 2 would be just to make a stack of those 2 images. And I find the easiest way to do that is just to go to File, come down to Scripts, and just click on Load Files into Stack. Ask it to add the open files, and I'm also going to ask it to attempt to automatically align. And just click on OK. And there we are. Photoshop has made me this new file, which is a stack of those 2 images. So if I just go on to the top one here and just reduce the opacity, I can just check that everything is in line, which it appears to be. Good. So I no longer need the 2 camera originals. So I'm just going to delete both of those, like so, and just leave me with the new file of the 2 layers in the stack. So the first stage in this transformation would be to select just the pairs. And to do that, I'm just going to use the Object Selection tool. Now if you have a look in your tool stack here and it's missing you can put it in by just right-clicking on the three dots at the bottom of the tool stack there and go to Edit Toolbar. You can then bring in the Object Selection tool from the Extra Tools menu here. There we go. So with that on, I can just click on that and I make sure that the Object Finder isn't selected and that you're in the lasso mode at the top here. And then basically you just have to very roughly draw around the subject you want to keep. There we are. So that has selected all of those pairs, and I want to add now to the selection this pair on the end here. So if I hold down the Shift key on the keyboard, I can now draw another lasso around that particular pair like this, and that's now added to the selection. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to turn that selection into a mask, and the way to do that is just to add a mask at the bottom here. So that has now made me a mask and placed it on that layer. And you can see we're already getting there. We now have the pairs floating, but there's no shadow, so it doesn't look quite right. And there's no shadow, that's because the mask here has included the tea towel. So all I need to do is just paint onto the mask where I want the shadows to be. So making sure that I select white as the foreground colour, and just go to a paintbrush. I might make that a little bigger and relatively soft. Okay, and now I can just bring those shadows back in from the other picture, like so. And that just adds a little bit of authenticity to the whole image. Should you make a mistake, like I've just brought in the edge of the glass there, because you're just doing this on a mask, you can just change back to black and paint that bit back out again. In fact, what I might do is just make that a little smaller so it's easier to do. There we are. So with that part now done, it just remains to pick a crop. So I'll go to the crop tool here. I'm just going to make sure that the background horizon there is straight by using the straighten command. I'm just going to draw a line across the back, just like that. There we are. I might just pick a particular ratio. I'm going to use this for video, so I'm using 16:9, and we'll just reframe that ever so slightly, concentrate the image a bit. There. And there we have it. So by carefully applying the techniques when we captured the initial pictures, I've been able to preserve the highlight on the bottom side of the pairs as well as the highlights on the top. That makes the whole thing a little more believable. And together with the shadows cast onto the tea towel there, you really do think that they are just floating in midair. And I think overall that has worked very well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.